Alright guys, I'm excited once again to present you the newest section in which we are finally starting to build the website. We're starting to convert the PSD design into a fully functional live website. So, open up the PSD for a reference here, and once you're here, just zoom in, wait for the PSD to load, select the move tool and zoom in. So in this lecture, we're going to be starting to build the HTML markup for this hero section right here. Now there's two ways you can do this. The first one is to write the HTML markup, and then once it's done, start styling it in the CSS. Or the second way is to style and write the markup and CSS simultaneously, which I don't really prefer. I like to write the whole markup first and then see what I have to work with and edit it out in the CSS. So that's how we are going to work with during this course. So without further ado, let's start coding the markup for the hero section here. One thing to note is that before you start this, you need to have all of the images cropped off from this PSD. We've gone through that in the earlier lesson, so if you don't have the images sliced off yet, just do that right now, or visit the project files, open up the img folder, and all of the images should be prepared for you in that folders. You can get them from there and paste them to your img folder in the folder you're working with. So now that we've got that covered, we are finally ready to start building the HTML. So let's get into it. Click on the brackets icon here to jump into your project, and let's start. So let's create a section with an ID of hero. That's what I like to call cover or hero. And inside this section, let's create the container. Perfect. All right, now the first div that we need to create, let's see, logically it would be for this logo here. So div with a class of logo, and inside let's put the logo in an A tag so it can be clickable. It's gonna lead to nowhere so far. Close that tag and insert the logo image, img_src image, and then look for logo.png. Alright, and then just in case, let's create a class with logo-img here and close the whole thing. Clean up the markup here, save it, preview live. Let's see what are we getting here. It should probably be right there, but it's not visible because the background is white. So as you can see, the image is right there, but right now it's not really visible. Alright, that's the first thing. As we can see, there is our div here. Now let's create the next thing here, which, let's say that we want to create this navbar here. So go underneath this div, create nav class of navbar. This is custom classes. Then let's just do the ul class of nav. Okay, and inside we're gonna need 5 li items, so li times 5, and inside we're going to need 5 href tags. So href is gonna lead to nowhere so far. We're gonna close that, and then inside we're gonna write home. So there's our first list item here. And I'm just going to copy and paste this 4 more times, just like that, and we're gonna change these accordingly. Features, download, blog, and contact. Okay, continuing on, let's see what's there next to create. let's say that we're gonna create this whole div as a one div, and then inside of that div we're gonna have one div for this here and one div holder for this. I think that would be the best practice, so let's do that right now. Underneath your navigation, create a div class of, I'm gonna call it CTA, so call to action, because it draws the attention here. And inside, let's create the div for the iPhone. I'm gonna call this div IMGs. And then inside of this div, I'm going to insert the iPhone image. Okay, let's search for the iPhone image. It's right there. And I'm just going to do a class of iPhone in case we need to edit this somehow later on. Let's see what happens in the browser. Now this image is really big here, but we're just putting on the markup now. We're gonna edit this later in the CSS, and right after this, CTA in the very same div, we're gonna create a new one with a class of CTA info, which will be the info right here with this button, and CTA info, close that, and inside let's write the heading 2, which says chocolate pudding dessert jelly. Okay, chocolate pudding dessert jelly. Then when we have this, let's recreate this paragraph here, which is P with a class of hero paragraph, alright, which says fruitcake donut gummies, blah blah blah. I'm just gonna press the horizontal type tool here, and I'm going to click on this text here. I'm going to copy it, whole thing, press on escape, and then go to your brackets and paste it right in there. And right beneath the p tag in this very same div, we're going to be creating this button here. So href is going to lead to nowhere with a class of CTA button, so call to action button. We're going to close this, and then we're going to write download on App Store. And let's see how this looks in the HTML. Obviously, we're nowhere near close to what we want to achieve here, but that's almost, our markup is done here, except that before this download, we need to insert this icon. If you can see here, I've already cropped that off for you, so just insert it here as a normal image, IMG source, and the name is phone icon. It's right there, and I'm gonna add a class to this small icon of phone icon, and then close this right here. And let's see what we have here. It's again invisible because it's white background here. As we can see right there is the icon. Now there's two things left to do, guys. The markup is almost done for this section. Now what we need to do is probably float this logo to the left and then float this navigation to the right. That would be the perfect thing to do here, because that's a very nice practice to have. So always when you have a navigation bar, always make sure to float the logo and navbar on their corresponding sections. So let's go and do add our div class of logo. Let's press insert, actually the float left class, which was align left. In case it's not working, I've probably made a typo mistake here, and yeah, I wrote aligned. Just change that, align to the left. Perfect. And now we can see that the logo has floated to the left, and then what we need to do is, because this navbar looks weird, we need to float the navbar to the right. So just press on the UL class of nav, just write align right. Okay, so far it looks pretty weird, but there's the logo here and there is our navigation here. As you can see, there's some kind of a mistake here, because this is the container that we want to put the content in, but for some reason the navigation bar goes outside of this container, which is not the thing we want to achieve. So let's see if there's an error here, and there is exactly our mistake here. The container, we don't want to close the container right where the logo ends, but we want to close the container at the end. Basically, we want the container to hold everything that's inside this 1100 pixels, if you remember from earlier lessons. So we need the container to hold everything inside, and then the hero section will be outside of the container. So if I close the container here, we can see that there is this section hero, and inside we have the container which holds everything. So make sure that you do this correctly if you don't want to face any problems in the later lessons. So once that we have that covered, let's go ahead in the next lesson and style this whole thing up so it can look better with CSS3. See you there. Alright guys, welcome back. We are continuing on from where we left, and that is styling our hero section. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. This is the HTML markup, and how it looks so far obviously is nowhere close to what we want to achieve. So we better get started coding it and styling it in the CSS. So let's just make this smaller here so you can see what happens in the background. All right, now let's select. If you press on the star on your keyboard and if you select, literally every element gets selected in our website. So we want to select every element and then do box sizing border box. This is basically going to force all of the elements to behave like border boxes. So no default margins and no default paddings will be applied to all of them. So make sure that you always write this, no matter what your project is. It is a good starting point. Okay, now that we've got that covered, let's select the, as you know, we have this section here with an ID of hero, and if we select that here, we can see that everything gets selected here consisted in the section ID of hero. But as you can see, the container here, if we select the container, only thing that gets selected is static width of 1100 pixels, and this is the container which holds all the content. So in order to put this background to the whole website and not limited to this content container, guess what we need to do? Set it as a background image to the hero section. It is that easy. So select the hero section, which basically selects everything, and then do background image. Okay, do the URL, and now what we need to do is type 2 dots, which makes you go one step behind in the file structure 3. So now what we have wrote here is 2 dots, and if you press on enter and then put slash, we can see that the whole directory is here. So we need to go to images and then look for an image called hero-bg, which is our background here. All right, now this does not look good at all, but we've got what we wanted here. And now let's just do background size of cover. This will basically make the image as a cover image to the section here, and it will not repeat itself or be placed in weird positions. Okay, so say background size cover. We're gonna center this background position center, as you can see there, and we're gonna do background attachment fixed. I'm gonna tell you what this is. As you can see, when scrolling this, we're achieving this amazing effect of the background being static in behind the document. So as you can see, as we scroll down, nothing is really happening to the background, and instead we are achieving this cool effect here. Okay, Next up is actually the heading 2 here. Let's style that, and if we can see in our Photoshop file, if we select the heading 2, we can see right here that the font size is 52 points. So that means that we're going to set all of the headings, because as far as I know, this is also a heading and the font size is as well 52 pixels. So all of our heading 2s will be 55 pixels in size. Okay, so just do font size 55 pixels, and that will automatically increase the size of our heading here. And if we want to make the heading bold, we just do font weight of 700, and we see how the heading changes as soon as we insert font weight bold. And we want these, since in our Photoshop design this heading is uppercase characters, we will need to do that as well. So just do text transform uppercase. Perfect. That's a good looking heading too, but it's nowhere near close to what we want to achieve. Okay, now that we have the heading done here, let's take care of this navigation here. Go to your CSS, and as far as we know, we need to select the nav class and then the list inside this nav class. So how can we do that? We're going to press nav and then li, and when we open that curly brackets, we can see that each and every link of our list item, or each and every list of our list item, is getting selected. So what we need to do now is change display to these list items to inline blocks, so they will get in line, and that's exactly what we want to achieve here. Now these look weird, purple color underline, there's an underline on the text here, so let's just edit that a bit here. But in order to do that, we need to select the A. So the same thing, nav li, and inside of the li we're selecting all the A's here. So the A is child of li. I hope you're already familiar with that. So we're selecting only the A's right now. And if we do color white, we can see that the font color is now white. We will also transform this text transform to uppercase. We're going to put text decoration to none. It will remove this underline effect on the links here, and we're slowly getting there. Let's put some margin on these, since there's not much space between those. We don't want that, so if we put margin to the left on each A item, we're gonna get some spacing in between them. Perfect. And now while we are at the navigation here, if you look closely at the Photoshop, we can see that there is this hover effect done, this white block here. So we want to achieve that, but we want to achieve it once we hover over one of these navigation items. Okay, so how can we do that? It's pretty easy, to be honest. Let's say that we're going to add a border to the bottom of this A links here, and that border going to be 4 pixels width, and it will be solid and then white. All right, so that's, we see our border here, and I think that is pretty stuck to these links. So what I want to do here is add a padding to the bottom, just 3 pixels. I think it will be enough. Yeah, okay. 13 is long. Let's just put 3 pixels there, so this border gets a little bit down. But what we want to do now is, let's make that these borders on this A link are all transparent, so they're invisible. So right now these borders are still there, but their color is pretty much invisible. And if we do nav.li, nav.lia, and then hover, and then if we open up the curly brackets and say that once we hover over a element, we're just going to do the border bottom to be 4 pixels, the very same one, white, but no transparency now. And if we refresh and see what happens here, we can see that on hover this effect is achieved here. Okay, Now what we want to achieve as well is the transition. So I want this color fill, this border color, to not be available at an instant, but I want it to be available after a couple of seconds here. So let's try to do transition, border bottom, 0.1 second, so it's going to be filled in a 0.1 second, and then the color as well 0.1 second. And if we copy this and paste it to the original state here, let's see what happens. And we're basically getting the very same animation that's shown in this Photoshop file here on hover. Okay, you can increase or decrease the seconds that it takes for this animation to fill up, but I'm going to leave it as is so far. Okay, so we're slowly getting there, guys. I'm going to crop off this lecture now because it's getting too long, and we are going to continue doing the very same thing in the next lecture, so stay tuned. Hey guys, alright, we're back here, and let's start off right away. In the last lecture we have done the list here, the LI navigation bar list. We have inserted the iPhone and the logo, and then we have inserted the background image. So now what's left to do is, let's first achieve this reddish kind of effect on the background. Go to your style.css, open up the website, and then scroll up to the hero, and then in this background image selector, write linear gradient. The only way to achieve this kind of reddish effect is through linear gradients, and I'll explain how they work in a second here. So write linear gradient and open up brackets, and inside write RGBA, and then open up another curly brackets here. So I've done, through trial and error, I have found out the correct code for the red color that we want to achieve here. So just write the code down for me. So it's 218,51,46,0.6, and this is actually the transparency. And then do a comma here, and then write one more RGBA, and then open up brackets and copy the exact same thing. Now the only thing you need to do is put a comma to the URL, and we're basically done here. So this first RGBA is for the top. So if we put 1 transparency, which means no transparency, we can see that the top is totally filled with red color, and this second RGBA is for the bottom part. And if we put here 1 transparency, we can see that the whole image is with this reddish color. But if we lower the transparency to 0.6, we are achieving this effect that we actually want to achieve, just like it is in the PSD file. So now that we've got that covered, let's move on. And let's change the color of this heading here, because right now it's white in the PSD, ours is black. So one way to select this would be through hero section, because that is the only heading that we have in the hero section, I'm sorry. So hero H2 will be color white, and then we're going to do margin bottom of 40 pixels, and everything is working perfect. Now, as you know, we can actually add the class of margin bottom right here, as I've already done, but it's totally up to you. And if I remove this, it will be the very same, because we have stated this margin bottom here by 40 pixels, alright? So that's up to you. Now let's take care of, firstly, this div here, of this call to action div. If you remember, this div called CTA, which is consisted of the IMG, the iPhone, and the CTA info. So let's select the CTA class first, and we're just gonna do display inline block, and then we're just gonna do some margin on the top of 90 pixels, so it's not really stuck to these navigation bar and this logo here. Okay, so as of now, let's take care of the iPhone first. We're gonna only focus on the iPhone. for now. So we see that the iPhone class, the image of the iPhone is inserted into this IMGs class. So we're going to select the IMGs class firstly, and then we're going to do float on the right, because according to the Photoshop file, the iPhone needs to be on the right. Alright, that's good. Now we're going to select the iPhone class, which is basically this very picture here. Once we have that selected, let's shrink down the size of the iPhone because it's too large. Let's put 85%. And as we can see, the iPhone size has shrunk down. And now if we set the position to relative to this div, and if we do a negative margin on the bottom of minus 240 pixels, look what happens. We're getting the illusion that the iPhone has went off from the website. But how do we want to actually hide this iPhone so it looks like it's behind this container? So that's pretty easy. Just scroll up to the container, set the position of the container to be relative as well, and then just do overflow hidden. And boom, like magic, the iPhone disappears and looks like it's cropped off. Okay, perfect. Now this class here, let's continue to edit it. Let's set this class position to be absolute. And positioning absolute means that, remember, if you want to position an element absolutely, its parent element needs to be positioned relative. So the parent element of this IMG class is CTA. So that's why we need to position this relative, okay? So right now, IMGs is inside this CTA and it's positioned absolutely to the CTA, which means right now we can move the IMGs wherever we want inside of this div. So let's say that I want to move away the iPhone by 135 pixels from the right, and it will move on the right. So as we lower this number, we can see that the iPhone is coming off to the left. So we're just gonna do minus 135. So the iPhone is where it needs to be, but right now it's shrunk down a lot. So I'm gonna fix that in a second here. Let's fix these CTA info class, which is basically this heading and this paragraph class. So right now, because the width of the container is set to 100%, if we select the CTA info class, we can see that it is taking up 100% of the container, and we don't want that because in the Photoshop we can see that this is taking a really small percentage of the space. So what we can do is actually set the width to this of 60%, do a padding on the right to even make it smaller of 150 pixels, and then just float this to the left. Okay, and that's really better here. We're slowly getting there where we want to be. Okay, we see that there's not a lot of space going on between this logo here and this navigation bar here. So what we can do is actually set some padding on the whole container. So follow along with me, I'll explain this. So we're gonna set this padding to 40 pixels and then 20 pixels, which means 40 pixels on the top and bottom and 20 pixels on the left and right. So we see here these 40 pixels taking place, and if we actually shrink this down, we can see that there are the 20 pixels here and here, which are not allowing for the content to stick to the edges, and now this way it looks really more professional. Alright, so we're slowly getting there. This might be a little bit confusing, but if you just rewatch this lecture one more time, it will, I'm sure, get more clear to you. So now let's continue in styling the hero paragraph here, which is this P class. Scroll down and select the hero para. And let's see the font size of this paragraph here, which is 36 pixels. Okay. Do font size 36 pixels. And remember the line height, because now it looks clustered, as you can see. The line height should be couple of pixels larger than the actual font size. So let's try a line height of 40 pixels, and it's pretty good. Let's set the font family to Helvetica. So just copy and paste Helvetica thin and paste it in our hero para here, and it looks beautiful. Now, we're not done, just do color white, and then add a margin on the bottom so it's not too close to this button here that we are about to edit, of 55 pixels. Alright, that is nice. So let's compare. We are slowly getting there. All we need to do is now style this button accordingly. Just follow along with me. Select the CTA button, that's the class name, and now just do by trial and error, I'm going to set the padding to be 23 pixels on top and the bottom and 35 pixels on left and right. And now we're getting this illusion that this button that is a link has some padding on the left and the right. And if we set the background to, let's see what color is this button here. So this is a new trick, pick up the brush tool and while holding Alt, click anywhere on this color. And then click right here in the palette, and then you'll see the color code here, the hex color code. So just copy this and then do background the same color. Pretty awesome, right? So there is our color straight in our HTML from the Photoshop. Amazing. Let's set the font color to be white. Let's remove the underline, so text decoration none, and let's set the border radius because these edges are really sharp here, and in the Photoshop design they're beveled. So we do that by adding border radius of, for example, 50 pixels, and it will fix the button right there. Alright, so far it's looking pretty good. If we save and refresh, now let's just change the color of this button here on hover, so it gets a nice little effect here. So CTA button hover. I've done this with trial and error, and the color that we want to achieve on hover is hashtag 383737. And we're going to do the transition to be on 0.3 seconds, which means that if we copy this and paste it in the original, once we hover over on the button, it will take 0.3 seconds for the new color to take place. Just like that. Okay. And we'll just edit this phone icon real quick here. We're just going to do vertical align middle, which will center the actual icon. And then just add some padding on the right, so it looks not sticked to the button of 20 pixels, guys. Save this. And we're basically done here. This was kind of overwhelming information for you, I'm aware, but don't worry that because we've got everything covered here. So follow me along in this next lecture, or you can play this once again if you're confused, but I'm sure that you will get your hands on it. It's not that complicated, but if you join me on the next lecture, we're going to be building the next section of the app features. So I'll see you there. Alright guys, we are back here, continuing on to be building the application features section, which is this right here. It is pretty easy section. One important thing that you can get from here is the creation of manual columns, and we'll go through that right now. They're pretty much similar to the Bootstrap columns, except that we are creating them by ourselves. So you can say that you are technically making your own framework here with these. Because as we already know, Bootstrap is just a framework with CSS3 classes and nothing more. I have, by the way, a course on Bootstrap 4, my earlier course is about that, but in this course we are actually doing it ourselves. Both ways are Very nice to know, very nice skill to have, so that's why I wanted to cover such a skill in this lecture, in this course today. Okay, so let's get into it. Open up your brackets code editor here, and let's try to select the section that we coded earlier and do beautify on it. And we can see how the section gets smaller in size. The white spaces and the blank spaces are removed, and it is just overall better looking. So we're going to do that every time we are done with the section here. The new section we are about to build would be section ID of app features. Okay. Now remember, the next step is the container, and we're going to store everything in this container here. Everything in this section will be stored inside this container here, which is again 1100 pixels in width. And let's firstly build the app features heading here and the paragraph beneath. Okay, so we're gonna do heading to class of app features. I'm using the Emmet plugin here, and we're gonna do app features, and then a paragraph class of p-features. And inside we're gonna copy and paste this text here, so press on the T icon here, click on this, press on OK, highlight the whole text, Control and C to copy, Escape to leave, and then just do Control and V to paste it. And if we save that, and if we open up our website, we can see actually the app features and the paragraph here. Now notice how this app features has the very same font as this, but we have not set it to such a font here. So how is this possible? It is because we have stated above that the body would have this font of Monsterrad and everything else would be Monsterrad, even if we don't set it by default. So that's why these app features and this paragraph here, the font of them is Monsterrad, font family Monsterrad. Okay. Now if you continue to be building the columns here, the markup, correct markup would be first to create a row which will hold these 3 columns, and then inside of the row create 3 columns by their own. So let's do that right now. Open up the CSS, go to the HTML, and let's do div with a class of row, and inside we're going to create 3 columns with the name of, or the class of, col-for-app. So col for app, and if we press on firstly times 3, and if we press on tab, we're going to create 3 of these columns each. A very easy way to save up some time here. Just clear up the white space, and let's see what's consistent inside of this column. So we have this image here, we have this heading here, and this paragraph here. All right. So as you already know, and as you already did, you've probably already cropped off these images here, these 3 graphics that I've taught you how to do it. But if you haven't, do not worry, because I've prepared them for you yet again. So go to the brackets. First, what we want to insert is the image. So image src imgs, and the image is col1img.png. Okay, so that would be the first image here, and if we go, we can see the image right there. So we're still in this first column here, don't get confused. So right now we're going to create a h heading 3 here. The content would be scalable, as you can see right here. So scalable, and the paragraph would be this here. So press on T, select this, press on OK, highlight, copy, escape, and then go to the brackets and just paste it in. And if we go to the website here, and if we refresh, we can see the image here, the heading, and the paragraph. Now obviously this is nowhere near done, but we are just entering the markup here. Let's go back to the brackets. We're going to do the same thing, second column here. So enter the image, which is img col2img. The heading 3 would be instant, as far as I know. Yep, instant. And this paragraph here, let's copy right now. This here is instant. and the paragraph would be just pasted in. Perfect, there goes our second column, and the third one, img src equals img called 3img. Then the heading would be something, and the paragraph again just copy and paste it inside the paragraph class, and in between write the heading 3, which is something. Clear up this markup here, and if we select the whole section here, and if we try to beautify it, we can see that again it gets beautified. Okay, save that, and basically we have the HTML ready for this section. But as you can see, we are far away from what we want to achieve here. So we're going to do that in the next lecture, where we will use CSS3 to achieve what we want. So I'll see you there. Thank you for watching.